Hello, friends and gamers. Welcome to the Fortress, where you observe strategy in action. The KMT Chinese forces are faced with two tough opponents. To the north, the Communist Chinese Party is already militarily and economically superior to the KMT. Across the sea in Japan, the Japanese naval, air power, and land forces are sufficient enough that they can wipe out any one KMT force that they choose to take, and take a large bite size out of the KMT economy. What will China do in this strategic idea? How will they resolve this problem? The Western allies are also faced with a strategic problem. German party ships. A German cruise liner lies off the coast of Cornwall with lights ablaze. On board, young German men are raising a ruckus, playing loud music, and mooning passing battleships. They're littering our coastlines with empty kegs of beer, as well as insulting our general English sensibilities. What is Britain going to do about the situation? Well, it's assembling a battle fleet and will attempt to dislodge these miscreants from our shores. Her Majesty's government has written a strongly worded letter to the German ambassador, warning him of the situation and telling him we'll not stand for this type of nonsense. The French Republic is concerned about its lend-lease to Ethiopia and wondering if it was the right move. The defense of France is paramount, and although our Ethiopian lend-lease may pay dividends, we need to focus our attentions on France. The KMT snapping turtle strategy. So the snapping turtle may appear controversial or amateurish to some players, but we'll unpack it for you and maybe I'll convert you to my side of seeing things. So at the start of the KMT turn, China only had 9 units to move around on the board. The militia we found later could not move at all in Chinese homeland up until China evolves to a major power. Now in version 3, militia can move within homelands, but in this one it can't up until it evolves. Chinese homeland includes Hong Kong as well as Manchuria, but barring Korea. So that's worth noting as well for future videos. Now, the KMT only had 9 units to spread across 4 borders, which means less than 3 in each border. It means out of the 4, only 1 will have 3 units and the other ones will have 2. So what could I have done with those units? Now, let's look at the CCP first. The CCP got really lucky on their first die roll and actually aligned the Northern Warlord. Now, they've gone from having just 2 IPPs worth of territory to up to 6, and actually they have 9 combat units that can move of their own now, and better units at that. They got 2 cavalry plus 2 mountain infantry, whereas I only have the regular infantry. So what I also didn't know is that the CCP can align the warlords at the end of their turn as opposed to the start of the turn, which would have changed some things for me. I thought I had time, and so this is my thinking. I could retreat troops from here to here. The thinking being, in the first turn, the CCP is going to align Qinghai over here at the start of their turn, and the second turn they're going to align Yunnan or Tibet at the start of their turn. Likely Yunnan, because Yunnan is actually worth $1 and has better units than Tibet. So I thought I had at least a couple turns to get things figured out. So I retreated from Sichuan. The reason I retreated is because they would do their rolls to align, and then even if they had this one, it doesn't matter at that point because this and this are both equally distant from Yunnan. So I retreated from this position to here, thinking that I had a bit of time with Sichuan. That is one mistake I would have made. I think I should have kept at least 1 infantry there to scare off what they could come into this territory with. But even so, the CCP could come into the territory with 2 cavalry plus 2 mountain infantry, which would be sufficient to wipe out 1 militia and 1 infantry. Now, what about Shantung? Now, Shantung is a different story. Why did the KMT abandon Shantung and turtle into here? So my competitors were bemused at that fact. Why did I retreat so quickly? There's a reason for that. And let me look at the Japanese forces first. The Japanese forces are huge. They have all these units here to attack with. The battleships can do shore bombardment. There's tactical bombers over here for those high-hitting rolls, fighters as well for those high-hitting rolls, and they had sufficient land units to drop off 6 units onto the board at a time. So that means they could do 6 shore bombardments as well. And now, if I remember correctly, shore bombardments happen before the defensive die rolls happen as well. So if I was to spend 1 infantry here, plus have 3, 3, and then say 2 in this position, then they would have sufficient to take out 2 of my territories, with a little bit of risk and luck, but they have sufficient territory to have dropped 3 land units on each of these territories. With shore bombardment, as well as fighter aircraft or aircraft for landing, they could pick up 2 of my territories if they so chose, which they might as well have done, because I would only have 2, I'd have 3, 3, and 2 over here. So they could have wiped out 2 of my territories if they so chose to do so. They could have also gone for CCP territory, which is a different matter entirely, but the only one they would have gone for is probably this militia here. So at the very least, they would take out these 2 territories over here, leaving these ones empty. So if I was to have units here, they would have just basically been wasted. I would have rather have a strong defense here. Now, you ask, why didn't I at least leave 1 unit present in this area? Before I withdrew from that territory, I spoke with Hilltop Pillbox and we arranged a truce between the 2 of us. Or I thought it was a truce. It was subsequently broken immediately. But at the time, it was a smart idea, I thought. But at the same time, you know, it prevented I thought it might prevent the CCP from moving their units into this position. But what I was actually hoping for was that the Japanese would come into this area. Because I knew the longer the Japanese waited to attack, the more warlords the CCP would align. They would go for Yunnan first. Subsequently, they'd go for Kwangtung down here, grabbing another 3 IPPs worth of territory, plus plenty of units as well to supplement their attack. And at the time, I thought I still had time for Yunnan as well, so they would have gone for Qinghai, and then Yunnan, and then Kwangtung. So if they waited 3 turns, I would have practically nothing except Tibet. And even then, if they waited an extra turn, I'd have nothing at all except for my home territory. I was at risk of being rapidly overshadowed. So I opened the door wide to Japan. I opened the door really wide, hoping that they would invade the very next turn. If they came into here, they would wipe out, they would wipe out whatever I had here, of course. But at the same time, I didn't want anything here because I wanted them to just walk in, because if they walked in, they'd have to declare war. And once they declare war, then I would get every warlord on the map. I'd go all the way from Xingkang, I'll just zoom out. I'd get all the way from Xingkang all the way down to Kwangtung. I would get everything, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 units that can move in exchange for $2. Now 12 units, like 12 times 3, you're looking at 36 at that point. You get 36 worth of IPPs for the loss of 2 IPP here. I thought it was well worth the risk. At the very same time, it'd form a buffer between me and the CCP, where we can both have them surrounded from all sides. That was the concept behind that. And it made sense, because what happened subsequently would be that the CCP would just align everything and leave nothing for me. So Shantung, we had that door wide open for them. That's the concept behind that, the snapping turtle strategy, where you withdraw to interior position that would be too strong for the Japanese to grab, but at the same time opening a door wide for the Japanese to grab. Now, I wouldn't have done this if the CCP hadn't aligned the Northern Warlord, but the fact that they did meant that they could start moving things around. So my thinking was the Japanese forces would see that and see that the CCP has an opportunity now to maneuver things up to the border or coastal regions and would snap them up the following turn. But turns out they won't be able to, or weren't able to at all. That's what this represents, a door open wide so that we could align the warlords. It's a withdrawal to strong points of defense, here behind a river and a mountain territory, and here within a city, so a +1 defense for all land units in that position. And that is the snapping turtle strategy and why we did what we did in this circumstance. Now, later on, we'll do another video about what subsequently will happen if the Japanese don't attack, but we'll unpack that for you later on. Thank you all for watching. Cheers.